Happy Halloween, bitches! Nah. Welcome to Liam's Library. The channel where we either talk about a book, a film, or I just get mad about something and yell at you all about it. Luckily, today is not the rant where I yell at you all. Luckily, it's the 3rd of October, and we're going to talk about some scary shit, which, as you all know, is my bread and butter. So, why not? Why not? Let's talk about the scariest movie in cinematic history, in my effing opinion. And it is JUON. 2002, written and directed by Takashi Shimizu. This movie is fantastic. This movie is so scary that Sam Raimi, the writer and director of Evil Dead, decided he'd try to bring it to America. He didn't fail, but it had nothing on this original Japanese subtitle movie by Takashi Shimizu. Let's talk about it. It is a movie that starts with the murder of a housewife by a husband, and he also murders the kid and the cat. We don't really get a lot of background, but we get a little bit of it as the movie goes along. What we do get is one of the creepiest intros in any film I've ever seen. It's black and white and hazy and just horrible and just blood-soaked, and he kills his wife. We don't know who these people are, not yet, but we will find out. We will find out. It's not a very long movie, but it is a very intense movie with a really big body count, so let's not waste any fucking time. Let's talk about JUON, 2002 by Takashi Shimizu, right here on Liam's Library. Tune in and enjoy yourselves. Okay. We have that intro. Next we have a social worker named Rika, and she is a volunteer, and she goes down to the place where she works or volunteers, and somebody sends her to a house and says, you need to go check on this old lady. Her other social worker has not arrived. He hasn't arrived for work, so if you could just see if she needs something, like needs a drink of water, maybe needs to change her diaper, stuff like that. Rika's like, well, I've only just started volunteering. I don't know if I'm right for this. He's like, no, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So she goes there. As she has to walk there with the address in her hand. As she walks down the road, and all these houses look the same. They all look the same. This is in Japan, in this certain neighborhood where all these houses look very similar. She comes around the corner and realizes she's at the right place. And as she looks, just the music kicks in. This haunting, creepy, scary music. And she goes like this. She literally has to take in a breath. There's nothing different from this house than any other street on this house on this block. But there is. It's a feeling you get when you see this house. And now every movement she makes as she walks towards this house is a much slower. And she takes her time. She's a bit nervous. We feel nervous with her. She goes in. She finds an old lady sitting in her own filth in a really filthy house that's like, looks like something like, they've let a 10-year-old just run amok for 5 days. So the only thing she can think of to do is, well, we better clean up the shit and the piss, and we're going to clean up this old lady. And she does. She gets big tubs of hot water and she cleans this poor old lady who has dementia and can't really tell her anything. There's supposed to be a husband. They're like a husband and a wife that live there looking after this old lady. But then they're not there. While Rika is there, some creepy things start happening. She sees a little boy with bruises and blood all over him. And she asks him, oh, what's your name? And he says, Toshio. Now we meet Toshio, a little boy that lives upstairs. Now, this family doesn't have any children. I'll just leave that with you. We'll get into the plot now. Rika rings up her social worker management and says, listen, there's a little boy upstairs and he's been attacked. He's like covered in blood and he has bandages and he's abused. The old lady is fine, but I need some help. This is bullshit. You shouldn't have sent me here. While she's looking after the old lady starts talking to herself. But talking as if somebody else is there. Not Rika, but somebody else. Rika's like trying to work out what she's saying. And as she does it, the old lady lies back in her bed and just goes and sees something in the corner of the room and lies back in complete and absolute fear. And as that happens, Rika thinks there's something else in the room with me. She doesn't have to say it. We all feel it while we're watching what's happening. And then we see an apparition, a ghost, a silhouette of blackness with long black hair leaning over the old lady like this. And then takes her life out of her. And then for 1 second, just 1 second, looks up at Rika. And it's all blackness. And then these blood red eyes open up on some of the best practical effects you've ever seen. It wouldn't have cost much to do it. It was, but so effective. It makes you go, fuck. And we know that whatever the fuck that ghost, monster, whatever it is, it's seen Rika. And she passes out, dead away. She just completely passes out. Now, we backtrack 5 years. And we see what's going on in this house. The wife of this house was murdered, brutally murdered, by the husband. The husband also killed the child, Toshio. And the cat. Even the fucking cat. Now, this movie has some really good aspects in directing, in what I call Tarantinoing. It's when you don't have to tell anybody that it's 2 weeks earlier, or 5 weeks later, or 3 years before. You trust your audience to enjoy what's going on and try to follow the story, because it's not a story that takes place over 3 days. It's a story that takes place over like years and years and years. Years and fucking years. And it's up to you to work out the timeline, because our director, Takashi Shimizu, he has faith in you to understand that this is an epic horror movie. It's an epic fucking horror movie. And if you need help in saying, well, what, like what, did that happen 5 years before? Why didn't they tell us? No, just calmly watch this movie and realize that when you watch the start, about 4 chapters later, we'll get to find out what happened at the start. But then we get like 3 parts which happened way before. And then at the end, like, wow, it's like 3 years in the future. It surrounds about 5 to 10 years of a history of this house. This house is a haunted house in Japan. This house is a haunted house in Japan. Why? Because a woman was murdered there by her husband. He also killed the kid and the cat. Now, that's the easy way to say it. Now, we're going to quickly look at notes, because I've given you the background. Okay, so here we go. Now, we get a lot of really interesting characters. We get some really good characters. We have the husband who rented the place after the people were originally killed in this house. And this is the son of the old lady who Rika comes into and has to deal with. You can see where I'm going with this, because it's almost like trying to like tell somebody who's never seen Pulp Fiction where every part goes, where all they need to do is go and watch the fucking thing. But I think it's necessary to say that you need to learn these characters. I'm from Australia, and I've watched this movie. Fuck, let's be honest. I've watched this movie, I reckon, 80 times. I might be over-exaggerating, but I also might be under-exaggerating, which I also do. So let's just be safe and say 80 times. Even though the whole thing is in Japanese subtitles, I can quote it, kind of. Kayako-san, Nakagawa-san. I can do this. There's a scene. There's a scene in this movie where the husband comes home and he doesn't know where his wife is. She's upstairs and just lying in bed. She's alive, but she's just doing this. She's terrified. She's fucking terrified. He doesn't know what's going on. This has happened so quickly. This is the second family to live in this house. Now the house is haunted. And he's like, you know, what's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter? Like, snap out of it. What the fuck is wrong with you? And he's like, shit, what do? I better call an ambulance. As he turns around to use his telephone, us, the viewer, we see a little dead boy with a white face just walk past. And he goes like this. And he's like, fuck. We all saw it. And so did he. But it's not there anymore. He's like, what the fuck is going on? And the music starts to pick up. It starts to pick up really slowly. And then he turns back around again and tries to use his phone. And as he does it, we see the little dead boy walk up again with his white face and stand over his wife and go and look right at her. And you're just like, fuck, turn around. And when he turns around, there's no little dead boy there. But it's the editing and the directing is done so well. We feel how scared he is, but we also know how scared she is because we've watched the day she's had dealing with the ghosts that live in her house. And these ghosts aren't scared. These ghosts aren't like oogity boogity boos. They're not just there to fucking make you jump and jump scare and be cliches. These ghosts will kill you in 24 hours. If they connect with you, you're fucking dead. The little boy ghost is named Toshio. And the woman ghost is named Kayako. Now, Kayako. I wasn't going to jump straight to it. I probably shouldn't jump straight to it, but we do need to talk about our bad guy. Yep, I think it's time to talk about Kayako. Kayako Saeki. That's her name. She is the woman who was actually first murdered in that house by her husband. She had a throat cut and she had to watch her kid get fucking killed. And the man just brutalized and killed her. We don't really know. We find out in sequels what possibly happened. But in this first movie, we don't really know. Apparently, she might have been cheating on him and Toshio wasn't his kid. But it's not about the husband that murdered the wife. It's about the murdered wife. The vengeful spirit of Kayako. She is angry that she was killed. Not only that, she was killed by such intensity and violence and she didn't want to go that she never really left us. So anybody that comes in contact with this house in Japan is, I'm sorry to swear on YouTube, but they're fucked. If, like, you can touch the door handle and you're fucked. You can fly back to wherever you lived. It might, like, not in Japan. You could fly back to the United States and wait and get off the plane and open your hotel room. And who will be in there? Kayako will be in there. The long black hair. And, you know, like, there are similarities to the Ring Girl. But I'm sorry. I love Ringu. The Japanese movie Ringu. And the novel Ring by Koji Suzuki. Which was before The Grudge. Let's give credit where credit's due. The Japanese Ring movie came out in 1998. The book came out in 1992. The Grudge is 2002, original Japanese. So let's give credit where credit's due. But I'm sorry, Kayako is so much scarier than Sadako. So much scarier. There is no way to escape her. She is a spirit that has been wronged. And she was brutally murdered. But now, no matter where you go. Okay, so ready? If I open my door right now, and my roommate, Daryl, came in here and said, hey man, what are you doing? I said, I don't know man, like, are we going to go get some lunch? He'd be like, yeah man, fuck, what do you want? I'd be like, I don't know, Macca's or some shit. He'd be like, yeah, sit, what do you want? I'd be like, I want a double quarter pounder with like McChicken sauce and fucking, you know, aioli sauce for my chips. Okay, well, see you in a minute. As the car leaves, the light over there would all of a sudden just stop. And Kayako might literally crawl out from under the seat that I'm sitting on. And she'd kill me. And she wouldn't kill me by like ripping my throat out or stabbing me or torturing me. Do you know how Kayako kills you? She kills you with fear. She scares you literally to death. That scares me to death. It's really hard for me to watch this movie. Anybody that knows me knows, oh shit, Liam's drinking and he's watching The Grudge. Because like when the sun goes down, I'm going to be shitting myself and I'm going to need to talk to you so you guys can talk me through it. Because this shit scares the fuck out of me. I don't think American cinema understands Japanese suspense horror cinema. The South Koreans definitely know how to do horror movies, but I still don't think they've gotten as close as Takashi Shimizu when he did The Grudge JUON and JUON Part 2, which we'll be reviewing next week. Kayako will kill you, and she'll kill you with fear. There's a part where one of the policemen that has investigated this entire story decides to go back to the house and just burn that fucking thing down. He thinks if he burns it down, it'll stop. As he pours the gasoline, we hear the... sorry, excuse me. That's a noise she makes. I'm sure it's a death rattle. You know, when a throat was cut or a throat was broken, it's like that, and you'll hear it, and it's terrifying. If anybody does it as a joke, I punch them in the fucking face because I don't think it's funny and it scares the living piss out of me. But you'll hear it. Now, so you'll hear the death rattle and there's nothing you can do about it. She's going to get you. So this cop, he spreads all this gasoline around the house. Before he can light it, he hears the noise. And then we get some visuals, man, and some cinematography, and just some slow, scary stuff. There's no jump scares going on here. We don't need jump scares. We have nothing but professional horror suspense. It's when Kayako comes down the stairs and she's all broken and covered in blood and just this creepy white dress, and she crawls down the stairs and she takes her fucking time and she slithers down it like a fucking snake, but her eyes, they never leave you, and she comes to fucking get you. And this cop that was going to burn the place down, he's like, oh, and he sits back because what the fuck is... I mean, you could kick it. You could fucking punch it. I think that if you punched it on the stairs, it would disappear and just come up behind you. Do you know what I mean? It's not easy to just do that. I've seen people say that on Facebook. Like, oh, we'll just fucking bash it. Just kick the fucking thing. There's a bit more to it than that. She's here to scare you to death, and she fucking will. I've seen grown men in this first movie. So the guy that tried to set the place on fire, he runs out. He's like, fuck this, and he runs out, and two cops rock up at the same time, like, what's going on? Because they're investigating it too, but in a separate fucking Quidditch. As the two cops come in, they just hit the floor, and Kayako just comes down and doesn't stop. She just keeps coming down the stairs. She's not fucking stopping for anybody. And these two grown detectives just hit the fucking floor, and Kayako comes upon them. And like that. And now we change chapters because we know they're dead. Those cops are dead now. They're fucking dead. Just like everybody Kayako comes across. Just like everybody who touches the front door to that fucking house. It terrifies me. It terrifies me. Anybody that tells me they've never been scared by a horror movie, turn the lights out. Don't have a room full of people and sook and then just sit on your phone yelling at Facebook every 10 minutes about a horror movie. Turn your fucking phone off. Turn all the lights off and lock your front door. Grab a blanket and some popcorn and watch JUON 2002 in its entirety. And then tell me you've never been scared of a horror movie, because I bet you're a fucking liar. Anyway, there is a point at the end of this. I always wondered what happens to the people that Kayako kills. A lot of people die in this movie. A lot of people die, and every now and then, police uncover bodies. And the thing is, when they find the bodies, they're like this, like, just scared to death. But 60% of the time, they never find the bodies. Kayako comes and gets you and just makes you disappear. Where do those bodies go? That's what I want to fucking know. If anybody knows, leave that in the comments. If you know more about The Grudge and JUON and Takashi Shimizu and Kayako than I do. Because I've been studying this bitch for fucking 15 years. So if you can tell me something about the boogeyman that nobody talks about, Kayako would make Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, fucking Pinhead, Doug Bradley piss. Her supernatural powers are only ghost powers. But she scares you to death. None of you have done that. Pinhead's never scared people to death. He rips them apart with hooks. Freddy Krueger stabs you in the guts with knives. Don't you, Freddy? Of course he fucking does, right? Michael Myers stabs you with a kitchen knife. Jason Voorhees machetes your ass. Kayako scares you to death. Tell me what other horror monster in our Hollywood, and she's allowed to be Hollywood because Sam Raimi brought her into the American Hollywood system. Tell me what other Hollywood fucking monster kills you with fear. And I'm not talking about Pennywise, because he physically kills you with teeth and then just eats your fear. There's nobody, there's no other monster except for Kayako Sayaki in the original Grudge that actually just scares you to death. And then a lot of the times they're never going to fucking find your ass. They'll never fucking find you. And I'm sorry, that scares me more than anything. When I hit stop on this video, I'm going to sit here in my little room. I'm going to start uploading it. I'm probably going to talk to myself because I've had a lot to drink. And then all of a sudden my lights might fucking flicker. And she could get me. How the fuck are you going to help me? I'm not famous. Maybe this is the last video I'll ever do. Because Kayako might fucking kill me. Stop my heart right in its chest. I wouldn't put it past her. I have said her name. I've invoked that bitch. Oh, I just get scared talking about her. Anyway, listen, heads up. Next week we're going to be talking about Midnight Mass. That Netflix series by Mike Flanagan, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it so far, and we're going to talk about Midnight Mass. Look after one another. You know what? Have a great Halloween. I'm going to try to upload so much shit this month that we're all just going to hang out all the fucking time. So look after one another. Don't take any shit from anybody. Listen, don't take any shit from anybody. I promise you, please don't. Just I don't know, if they're annoying you, be yourself and tell them that they're not allowed to talk to you like that. I'm talking about anybody in everyday situations. Read some really good books. There's some great books out there. You know, like take a chance and just open a book. That's the best way to do it, because books are better than movies. But also just commit to movies. Even if the movie kind of sucks, just hit play and just have a good time with it. And then tell me if you watched a movie that you think I might like to fucking review, because I'd love to talk about that. And listen, take care of one another and don't take any shit from anybody. I'll see you next week. Whoop whoop.